You don't get what you want by holding on tighter. You get it by releasing the grip that was blocking it all along. Most people have it completely backwards. They believe that the harder they push, the faster things will move. They believe that if they just think about it more, check for it more, monitor it more, worry about it more, something will finally shift. But nothing shifts, because the pushing itself is the problem. There is a law that governs how results enter your life. Not the law of effort, not the law of hustle, not the law of force, the law of internal state. And that law is simple. Whatever you are feeling on the inside is what your outside reality is constantly organizing itself around. Not your words, not your plans, not the goals written in your journal, your feeling, your internal pressure, your need. And when you are forcing an outcome, when you are gripping it, chasing it, obsessing over it, checking on it every single day, the feeling underneath all of that is not confidence. It is lack. It is, this hasn't happened yet. It is, I need this to be okay. It is, something is wrong and I have to fix it. And that feeling, that quiet, desperate undercurrent, is what your reality reads, not your desire, your anxiety about the desire. This is why results stall, not because the universe is punishing you, not because you aren't working hard enough, not because you don't deserve it, because trying too hard is a signal, and the signal is fear. Think about the last time something came to you easily, something you wanted but didn't obsess over, something you thought about briefly, felt genuinely good about, and then let your mind naturally move on from. And then it showed up, maybe quickly, maybe in a way you didn't expect, maybe through a path you never could have planned. But it came. That wasn't luck, that wasn't timing. That was the absence of resistance. That was your mind operating in a clean state, not heavy with need, not contaminated by doubt, not constantly scanning for signs that it was coming, just open, relaxed, certain without being desperate. And that openness, that internal spaciousness, is the only environment where results can actually move toward you, not force, not pressure. Space. The mind operates in two very distinct modes. The first mode is control. In control mode, the mind is gripping the wheel with both hands. It is calculating every possible outcome. It is preparing for failure while pretending to expect success. It is trying to manufacture certainty in a world it cannot fully predict, and it exhausts itself doing this every single day. Because control is not a strategy. Control is a fear response, dressed up as discipline. It feels productive on the surface, but underneath, it is the mind saying, I do not trust this process unless I am constantly managing it. The second mode is trust. In trust mode, the mind is still aware, still intentional, still taking action, but it is not white-knuckling the outcome. It knows what it wants. It has set the direction clearly. It is moving forward. And then it releases. Not because it doesn't care, not because it has given up, but because it understands something most people never learn, that caring too loudly creates interference, that needing too desperately pushes the thing further away, that the tightest grip produces the slowest results. Here is the psychological reality of what happens when you live in a constant state of forcing. Your nervous system stays activated. Your body reads the situation as a threat, not because anything dangerous is actually happening, but because your mind has made the absence of results feel like an emergency. And when the nervous system is in that state, alert, contracted, scanning, tense, it cannot receive, it can only defend. It narrows your perception down to the problem itself. It makes you blind to the opportunities that are sitting right in front of you. It locks you inside the same thoughts, the same patterns, the same cycles, day after day after day. Because a mind in survival mode is not a creative mind. It is not an open mind. It is not a mind that attracts. It is a closed system, and closed systems do not grow. Closed systems repeat. Now, understand what happens the moment you release that internal pressure. Something biological shifts. The nervous system begins to settle. The body stops reading the situation as a threat. The mind opens. Perception widens, and you begin to notice things that were invisible to you before. A conversation you would have dismissed. A thought that arrives like a quiet answer. An opportunity that suddenly feels obvious. A door that seems, without explanation, open. None of those things are new. They were there the whole time, but you couldn't see them because you were too locked inside the problem, too focused on what wasn't there, too busy managing the absence. Letting go doesn't mean you stop wanting. It means you stop panicking about wanting. It means you stop making your peace of mind conditional on the result arriving. And the moment your peace is no longer conditional, your state changes, your energy changes, your perception changes. And when those things change, everything around you begins to reorganize. There is something deeply misunderstood about the concept of surrender. People hear that word and they recoil. They think surrender means weakness. They think it means passivity. They think it means you no longer believe, no longer expect, no longer want anything. But that is not surrender. That is defeat, and they are nothing alike. True psychological surrender, the kind that actually moves results, is the act of trusting the process without needing to control every step of it. Each you is knowing exactly what you want with complete internal clarity, and then releasing the desperate need for it to happen in a specific way at a specific time, through a specific door. Because the need for control is always rooted in one thing: doubt that it will come. Doubt that you are worthy of it. Doubt that the process will work unless you are standing over it constantly supervising. And that doubt, even when it hides beneath ambition, even when it disguises itself as preparation, even when it calls itself responsibility, creates friction. Deep internal friction, the kind that slows everything down without you even realizing it. You have felt this. You have had moments where you simply decided, I'm done stressing about this. Not because you gave up, but because you were exhausted, and in that exhaustion, something released, the grip loosened, the monitoring stopped, the mind went quiet, and shortly after that moment, something moved, something shifted, something that had been stuck suddenly came through. That was not coincidence. That was your internal state finally getting out of its own way. The resistance dropped, and results, which were already forming, already organizing, already moving toward you, finally had a clear path in. This is what most people never understand. Results are not waiting for you to do more. They are waiting for you to resist less. They are waiting for the moment when your inner world finally matches what you say you want. Not performance, not hustle, not the appearance of belief. Alignment, real, internal, felt alignment. And that alignment only becomes possible when the pressure is released, when the grip loosens, when you make the conscious decision, not a desperate one, not a defeated one, but a powerful, deliberate decision to trust what you cannot yet see, to believe in the result before the result believes it needs to show you proof. That is not weakness. That is the most psychologically advanced thing a human being can do, and it is the thing that changes everything. Control feels productive. That is the trap. It feels like you're doing something important. It feels like movement. It feels responsible, like if you just stay vigilant enough, focused enough, present enough, worried enough, the result will finally come. But what you are actually doing is feeding a cycle built entirely on lack. Every time you check for the result and it isn't there, you confirm the absence. Every time you think about why it hasn't happened yet, you rehearse the story of it not happening. Every time you run the same worried thought through your mind again, you deepen the neural pattern that says, this is not here. I do not have this. Something is still wrong. And your subconscious mind, which does not think in words, which does not understand logic, which only reads feeling, receives that signal and treats it as instruction. It organizes your reality around the feeling of absence, not because it is working against you, because it is working exactly as designed. It gives you more of what you are most deeply feeling, and if what you are most deeply feeling is need, it gives you more reasons to need. If what you are most deeply feeling is lack, it gives you more experiences of lack, not as punishment, as reflection. Your outer world is always a reflection of your inner state, always, without exception. This is where most people make the critical mistake. They look at their outer results, the ones that haven't come yet, and they use those results as evidence of what to feel. They say, "I'll believe it when I see it. I'll relax when it's done. I'll feel good when it arrives." But that is the logic of someone who doesn't understand how results are actually created. Because results don't come first. Feeling comes first, state comes first, inner reality comes first. The outer world is always, always responding to what already exists inside you. So when you say, "I'll feel certain when I see proof," you are asking the effect to create the cause. You are asking the reflection to change before the mirror does. It doesn't work that way. It has never worked that way, and deep down, you already know this, because you have seen it. You have watched someone who had every reason to doubt move forward with complete calm and watched things fall into place for them in ways that made no logical sense. And you have watched someone else, someone with every advantage, grip tighter and tighter, and watched everything slowly unravel. The difference was never the circumstances. The difference was always the state. Now let's talk about what resistance actually is. Because most people think resistance is something that happens to them, something external, something outside their control. But resistance is not outside you. Resistance is you. It is the part of you that doesn't fully believe. It is the part of you that wants the result, but quietly doubts its coming. It is the gap, the internal gap, between what you say you want and what you actually feel is true. That gap is resistance, and the size of that gap determines how fast or how slowly your results move. When the gap is large, when you want something deeply but feel far from it, resistance is high. Movement is slow. Everything feels like friction. When the gap closes, when your inner feeling begins to match your desire, resistance drops, and things that were stuck begin to move. Not because the world changed, because you changed. Because the interference pattern that was blocking the signal finally dissolved. Think of it this way. Imagine you are trying to tune into a radio station. The frequency is there, the signal is broadcasting, the music is playing, but your receiver is full of static, full of noise, full of interference. You cannot hear the signal. Not because it isn't there, but because the noise inside is louder than what you are trying to receive. That noise is your resistance, your doubt, your monitoring, your constant checking, your quiet fear, and no amount of turning up the volume cuts through that static. The only solution is to clear the interference, to quiet the internal noise, to let the signal, which was always there, which never stopped broadcasting, finally come through clean. Letting go is not passive. Letting go is the active clearing of everything inside you that is blocking what is already moving toward you. It is the most powerful thing you can do, not the weakest, the most powerful. There is a version of you that already has what you want. Not in the future, not as a fantasy, as a psychological reality that exists right now, waiting for you to inhabit it. That version of you does not check constantly. That version of you does not lie awake running calculations. That version of you does not need external proof to feel internally certain. That version of you simply knows, quietly, deeply, without performance. And that knowing, that settled, unshakable inner knowing, is not something you build by forcing. It is something you access by releasing, by dropping the story that it isn't coming. By dropping the habit of treating your desire like a problem to be solved rather than a reality to be inhabited. The moment you step into that version of yourself, even slightly, even imperfectly, the gap begins to close. The resistance begins to dissolve, and results begin to move. Let's be specific about what letting go looks like, because it is not what most people imagine. It does not look like indifference. It does not look like telling yourself you don't care anymore. It does not look like pretending the desire doesn't exist. Letting go looks like this. You know what you want. You feel the desire clearly. And then, instead of chasing it, instead of gripping it, instead of monitoring it, you turn your attention back to the present moment, back to who you are right now, back to the feeling of already being the person for whom this is done. You stop treating the result as something out there, distant, delayed, uncertain, and you begin treating it as something already decided, already real, already yours, in a dimension of reality that your physical eyes haven't caught up with yet. That shift in orientation is everything. That is not delusion. That is not false positivity. That is the precise psychological mechanics of how reality responds to consciousness. Your subconscious mind does not know the difference between something vividly imagined and something physically experienced. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. The same neural pathways fire, the same chemicals release, the same body responses activate, which means when you practice feeling the result as real, when you inhabit the state of having, when you let yourself settle into the version of you who is no longer waiting, your brain begins to treat that state as the baseline, as normal, as the default experience of being you, and when that becomes the default, your perception shifts to match it, your behavior shifts to match it, your energy shifts to match it. And the world, which is always reading your energy, always organizing around your dominant state, shifts to match it too. Not eventually, immediately. The shift begins the moment the inner shift becomes real. This is why letting go makes results come faster. Not because you stopped wanting, because you stopped broadcasting the frequency of not having. You stopped sending the signal of lack. You stopped confirming the absence with every worried thought, every desperate check, every night spent calculating what hasn't arrived yet. And in that silence, in that internal stillness, a new signal emerged. The signal of someone who already knows, who already feels it, who is no longer in conflict between their desire and their doubt. That signal is clean. That signal moves. That signal reaches whatever it is you are calling in. And it responds, because it was never the world that was slow. It was the resistance that was loud, and now the resistance is dissolving, and everything that was always meant for you is finally finding its way through. You have been taught that the harder you work for something, the more you deserve it. That effort is proof of worthiness. That struggle is evidence of commitment, and there is truth in that, in the physical world, in the world of skill and craft and tangible creation. But when it comes to your inner reality, when it comes to the results that are shaped by your state, your identity, your subconscious signal, effort without alignment is just noise. Loud, exhausting, unproductive noise, because you cannot force your way into a frequency. You cannot hustle your way into a feeling. You cannot pressure yourself into genuine certainty. Those things only come one way, by releasing everything that contradicts them. There is a version of wanting that is clean. It is light. It is clear. It is directional. You know what you want. You feel drawn toward it. You move in that direction with ease and with trust. And there is another version of wanting that is heavy. It is tangled. It is anxious. It is saturated with need. You know what? You want, but underneath that knowing is a quiet terror that it won't come. And so you grip, you monitor, you obsess, you replay scenarios, you look for signs. You try to control every variable that might affect the outcome. And that heaviness, that desperate, tangled, anxious wanting, is not desire. It is fear wearing the mask of desire. And fear never builds. Fear only contracts. The question is not whether you want it. The question is, what kind of wanting are you operating from? Because clean wanting creates space for results to enter. Heavy wanting fills that space with resistance. And you can tell the difference not by thinking about it, but by feeling it. Clean wanting feels like excitement, like openness, like, this is coming and I am ready. Heavy wanting feels like tension, like urgency, like, This needs to happen, or something is wrong. One of those states is aligned with receiving, the other is aligned with blocking. And the moment you can honestly feel which one you are in, you have the power to shift. Shifting does not mean forcing yourself to feel positive. That is not what this is. Forced positivity is just another form of resistance, because underneath the performance, the fear is still there, still running, still sending its signal. Shifting means something quieter, something more honest. It means you sit with yourself and you acknowledge, I have been gripping this. I have been treating this desire like an emergency. I have been making my peace conditional on an outcome. And then, without drama, without self-judgment, you choose to release it. Not because you don't care, but because you understand, deeply, psychologically, completely, that the release is the thing that moves it, that the open hand receives more than the closed fist, that the settled mind attracts faster than the anxious one. You release because you are wise enough to know that holding on was never helping. Think about water. Water does not force its way through rock. It does not attack. It does not strain. It does not grip. It simply flows. It finds the path of least resistance. It moves around obstacles without resistance, without frustration, without force. And over time, it shapes everything. Mountains, canyons, coastlines, not through force, through consistent, effortless, trusting flow. That is the model, not the hammer, the river, not the fist, the open hand, not the desperate chase, the calm, certain, unwavering walk toward what you already know is yours. There is a deep psychological principle at the heart of all of this, and it is this. You cannot receive what you are afraid to lose. Read that again. You cannot receive what you are afraid to lose. When you are gripping an outcome, when your emotional safety depends on it arriving, you have already introduced fear into the equation. Fear of it not coming. Fear of what it means if it doesn't. Fear of who you are without it. And that fear, that attachment, creates the very resistance you are trying to overcome. Because the universe, your subconscious mind, your energetic field, call it what you will, does not respond to desperation. It responds to security. It responds to the person who wants something but does not need it to feel whole. The person who desires without demanding, who expects without obsessing, who trusts without evidence. That person receives, not because they want it less, because they resist it less. This is the identity shift that changes everything, not a shift in your actions, not a shift in your strategy, a shift in who you are at the level of feeling. The person who is always chasing has a very specific identity. That identity says, I am someone who is still waiting. I am someone for whom this has not arrived. I am someone who needs to keep pushing or it will never come. And as long as that is the identity, as long as that is the story running beneath the surface, the chasing continues. The results stay just ahead, always almost, always close but not quite, because the identity of waiting produces the experience of waiting, every time without fail. The identity that receives looks completely different. That identity says, I am someone for whom things work out. I am someone who trusts the process because I have seen what trust produces. I am someone who has already decided, and the decision is done. That identity does not chase, it does not monitor, it does not grip, it simply moves through the world. With a quiet, settled certainty, knowing that what it has claimed is already real on a level that the physical eye hasn't confirmed yet. And that certainty, that deep, unperformed, genuine certainty, is the signal that changes everything. It is the frequency that reorganizes reality. It is the internal shift that the outer world cannot help but respond to. So here is what this comes down to. Not as a technique, not as a strategy, as a truth. The results you want are not being withheld from you. They are not hiding. They are not delayed because you haven't tried hard enough. They are moving toward you right now. they have always been moving toward you. The only thing that was ever slowing them down was the static, the internal noise, the resistance, the grip. And the moment that grip releases, the moment you decide, genuinely, deeply, without performance, that you trust this, that you are done forcing, that you are willing to receive instead of chase, that you are the person for whom this is already done, in that moment, everything shifts, not eventually, in that moment, because the shift was never out there. It was always in here. It was always about the state you were living from. It was always about the identity you were wearing, and you have the power, right now in this moment, to wear a different one. Stop chasing the result. Become the person for whom the result is inevitable. Stop monitoring the absence. Start inhabiting the presence of what you have already decided is yours. Stop gripping. Open your hands, open your mind, open your inner world to the reality you have been working so hard to force into existence, and let it come. Because it will come, not because you forced it, because you finally stopped blocking it. That is the truth most people spend their whole lives learning too late. You are learning it now, and now everything changes.